Breaking news, the Warframe developers just released the abilities for the upcoming spiderframe Oraxia. And in this video, we're not only going to go over what these skills are, but I will also give you some context and some suggestions onto what this might mean for her builds, as well as how to play her. As always, big shout out to all our generous channel members who help me keep the lights on, and now let's get right to it. Now, first of all, a quick disclaimer, this information has apparently been released while I was live streaming, and in the original release there seems to have been a couple of mistakes. However, the devs say that now the texts on the website are updated, so from all I can tell, the information this video here is based on should be up to date, but of course, skills are always subject to change. But now, let's go over what these abilities are, starting out with the passive, and this one looks pretty darn simple. Whenever you latch onto a wall, you will trigger a passive ability called Predator's Lurk, making you invisible for 8 seconds. This, all in all, is a pretty darn good passive. However, I have 2 questions here, and we'll have to see how it goes when she releases. A, can you re-trigger it by wall latching within those 8 seconds to stay constantly invisible? And B, can you shoot weapons and still stay invisible, or is it going to be something like the invisibility from Shade that drops the moment you attack? These 2 would be nice to know because they would have a big influence on how we play in practice. Ability number 1 is a relatively simple and straightforward one. It's called Mercy's Kiss, and what it does is you leap onto an enemy, sting that enemy with your spider legs, dealing toxin damage, and enemies defeated by this attack have a chance to drop health and energy orbs. Now, to me, this kinda sorta seems like your energy sustainability, kinda sorta like Citrine's Fractured Blast. However, what is a little bit sus here in contrast to Citrine, it seems that with Mercy's Kiss for Oraxia, you will have to get the finishing blow onto the enemy, otherwise you're not gonna get anything. And depending on the scaling of this ability and maybe the enemy level, this could potentially be a problem in higher level content. Should that be the case, then I think this might be the one that we subsume over with something else from the helmet in higher level content. However, we'll of course have to wait till release to see it for ourselves. Ability number 2 is called Webbed Embrace. With this one, Oraxia throws out a creeping web, and enemies trapped within it are trapped inside of a cocoon that increases their damage vulnerability. This to me kinda sounds like the AoE crowd control that Caliban has, and all in all it just sounds like a pretty darn good ability, especially if the damage vulnerability were to be scaling with your ability strength. Ability number 3 is called Widow's Brood, and this is a bit of a mystery box because it doesn't really say a lot, other than that you shoot out toxin darts in an area in front of you that deal poison damage to enemies, and that enemies on death when they were poisoned spawn scuttlers. I don't exactly know what scuttlers are, probably something like maggots from Nidus, and I'm not sure in how far they interact with the kit or what they can do. This for me is a bit of a question mark. Could be very darn broken with certain interactions, or could be kind of eh. And finally, we have her signature ability, which is really darn cool. It's called Silicon Stride, and this is what brings Oraxia into her big spider legs form. But not only that, you will also become immune to status effects, which means yes boy, no primed surefooted needed here. And it also increases her maximum health, as well as give you toxin infusion on ranged weapons. If you kill enemies in this stance, they will burst with toxin, so all her kit is focused around dealing toxin. And here comes the big part, which synergizes very nicely with the passive. While you're in this form, if you press the dodge button, you will leap towards the surface that you're aiming at and wall latch onto it. Remember the passive, whenever you wall latch, you will become invisible for 8 seconds. Imagine, if you're in your 4, you could constantly press dodge, jump from surface to surface, maybe keep up the invisibility constantly, and rain death upon your enemies while they can't even see you. This is how I imagine it to be, and that would be pretty darn cool. And it would also be pretty darn cool if you could maybe drop a like for the video because it always helps me big time with the YouTube algorithm, so cheers so much for your support. And now that we're done with the skills, let's also have a quick discussion on how we might want to build her. Now, first of all, the elephant in the room, her whole kit being focused around toxin damage, of course, screams Archon continuity. Abilities that inflict toxin also will inflict corrosive. This means we will probably want to put at least one Tau Forged Green Shard onto Oraxia to use the corrosive that comes with Archon Continuity as an armor stripping tool. You're probably going to get a lot of it with her kit, especially when you throw out those darts with her third ability. And this could be very nice if we were able to keep the invisibility up constantly. We could use Arcane Crepuscular for not only more ability strength, but also 3 times more crit damage multiplier, which would be sick. And that would also mean that we could use Spectral Serration on the guns when using Oraxia, which gives us even more damage. Sounds like an incredibly cool gun platform. But another very fun interaction that we could potentially see here would be using Arcane Arachne that gives you more weapon damage in combination with an Exodia Contagion Saw, because the damage from Arcane Arachne stacks multiplicatively with Exodia Contagion, which could potentially be a very cool interaction. But what do you think about her kit, or how would you mod her? Let us know in the comments down below. Another massive shoutout to Niels V, Demon Lord Zell, Demon Emperor, Emperor Prime, Nox Linux Gaming, Turtlepeer, Lycon Shepherd, Undercanio 2, Pepperwolf, Mihawky, Phil the Meme, Socrates the Almighty Rat, Leo Murasaki, Damon, Shadow Lockhart, Trollaloxen, Kiski, Antares, Patrisator, Christopher S. Mawson, and all the generous channel members for your continuous support. We see each other, hopefully in the next one, and until then, as always, good loot.